Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, a weekly show for visionary founders and team members alike to come together and share the heartfelt, the cringe, and the radically honest truths about what it's really like to build and work for brands with the highest levels of visibility. I'm your host, Veronica Romney, and after working for some of the biggest names in the online space myself, I've learned that it takes both leadership and collaboration to truly scale a company to its greatest potential. And I'm here to do one thing: empower leaders, teams, and dreams. So let's make it rain on today's episode. Adrienne, welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So I should disclose, we are very, very good friends, but we didn't start that way. So that's always, we'll talk about that on today's podcast. But I'm super grateful to have Adrienne here. I couldn't hold somebody in more esteem than I do this woman. So I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. Will you do me a favor and introduce yourself on today's podcast?
Yeah. I never planned to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. It wasn't even in my mind. I served in the military and then I got a degree in public relations. I worked in advertising and marketing. But when I got laid off while I was pregnant, I was like, well, what the heck am I going to do with myself? So my first business was actually a parenting magazine that I started out of a need for myself to be like, I don't know how to be a mom. And so I started a parenting magazine called South Jersey Mom. I was too stupid to know how hard it would be, and built that from nothing to 30,000 printed copies per month in a full color glossy magazine that distributed to 7 counties in New Jersey. And I loved doing that, but it was 16-hour days, 7 days a week. And I had 2 littles at home. And so I decided to sell the magazine. It's still in print today, but I took 2 years off, homeschooled my kids. And then I was like, okay, I got to get back to business. And I decided to start a PR firm because that's what I knew how to do. You know, we also, when I had the magazine, I had a team of writers and a sales team that sold print advertising and all that. So I had this vast array of experience and just started a firm doing everything I knew how to do. And about 3 months after I started my PR firm, I discovered Facebook ads. And I really originally just wanted to learn them to use them for myself, to get myself more clients. And I very quickly realized that this amazing tool with my marketing and advertising and PR background was getting very powerful results for myself. So I started going to my clients and saying, hey, do you want to be a guinea pig? I won't charge you for this. I just want to try it out on you. And started getting great results. So within my first year of opening my PR firm, I shut down everything PR related and decided I'm going all in on Facebook ads. And I've been doing that for about 9 years.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I met you. So let's share how we met each other.
You're going to tell your side of the story, right? And now I'm going
Yes.
to tell my side of the story.
Yeah. 100%. This is going to be the best. This is the best. So I met Adrienne in a really crazy time. I basically had started working with Pete Vargas. I was going to be taking over his marketing team and marketing department. And I was coming on after the pandemic had started, right after the pandemic. I mean, it was pandemonium, the word pivot. Everybody was using the word pivot.
Yep.
And we were in the throes of chaos. And Pete, I mean, he is one of the most well-connected human beings I've ever known or probably will ever know. The guy's woo abilities is unreal.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had this idea to basically put together this massive Facebook challenge called the Rise Up World Challenge. And this was his response, our response, the company's response to feeling like you didn't have any kind of control of what was happening because we were all going through this world pandemic. And so I was coming on board, and this is where I meet Adrienne. Adrienne's already on the scene, people. Let's just put that out there. I'm the new one.
I had been there, I want to say, for about a year. Maybe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Adrienne's a boss. More importantly, she knows she's the boss, right? So I'm coming in as the director of marketing, essentially the marketing rainmaker for Advance Your Reach. And I'm in charge of, the vendors, right? The team, the vendors. And one of the vendors is Adrienne Richardson, and she's in charge of AYRs, of Facebook ads. And I saw you within 30 days less basically fill a Facebook group of 100,000 people. No exaggeration. I don't think I've ever seen anything to the likes of it, to be honest with you. And that was literally you doing all of it. But I remember, actually, you know what? I'm curious. I want to hear your perspective first, because I came in and I certainly when I'm in rainmaking mode and I'm in that capacity, I run a tight ship. I pride myself on the way I hold the team accountable and how I hold, just run as a rainmaker. But you tell I'm so curious. You tell your perspective as a vendor and I'm coming
Oh
on scene
gosh.
as the new one.
Well, so the former CMO at Advance Your Reach, I had been working with her for a while. She knew my
Mhm.
reputation when
Mhm.
Pete hired me, and so I entered into a position where I was greatly respected, I was greatly trusted, and everybody like basically I just did my thing. And like they came to me, Pete would come to me, his CMO would
Mhm.
come to me, we would strategize, we'd talk about things,
Mhm.
and then like I would just make it happen, right? And so I didn't really like quote unquote report to anyone in
Mhm.
any kind of formal way. I mean, I did. I had weekly meetings with them and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? But so my when you came on board, and I may have a bad memory, but my first memory of interacting with you was you had sent me a Vox and was questioning my campaigns inside of Facebook. And so my, going from a position of being very trusted and not like basically managed at all, I self-managed, to having someone question me that I didn't know, that I didn't have a relationship with, immediately like my 8, I'm an Enneagram 8, was just like, oh no, like who is this person questioning me? And so that's where I was at.
Oh, I felt it. I felt it. Yeah, because I'm sure I said hello. I'm sure there
Oh
was
yeah,
some peasant, like some
of
kind
course.
words first. But yes, it was very much along the lines of like, hey, I'm new, you're a vendor. Can you show me what you've been doing? Can you like walk me like I need to get to know you, but we
Yeah,
were also in the throes of this launch. Then it was like not even like any kind of space to like warm up. It's like, okay, now what are you doing?
yeah,
Why are we doing it this way? Why are you targeting these specific audiences? What like probably what rubbed you wrong was like, well, what about these ones? And like here I am, like coming in as sous chef, trying to add ingredients to your like perfect dish. But do you remember? Because I feel like I know when I turn the tide for you or when your opinion softened towards me because I know I rubbed you wrong. Because I remember Jess, who is the integrator CO, came in to me. She's like, so Adrienne reached out and said you're crowding her space. I'm like, well, I really wanted these numbers and I would really like a report. And she's like, she doesn't do reports. I'm like, well, can you? So like, it was one of those.
yeah.
But I think I know when you softened towards me, but I'm curious from your perspective when I gained your respect.
Oof. Well, I just want to add one thing first about the reporting. Okay. So I did do reporting, but I didn't
Yeah.
do it the way that you wanted me to do it.
Yes.
And when
Yes.
Veronica requested me to
Yeah.
create a report for her in a
Mhm.
certain way, I was like,
Mhm.
I'm not doing that. And I'm sure that rubbed her the wrong way. Like, I'm sure that
Uh-huh.
rubbed you the wrong way. Of you're like, excuse me,
Mhm.
like, what do you mean you're not going to do
Mhm.
that?
Mhm.
And so I was so like furious over that I even messaged Pete and I was like, I don't know who this chick is, but I'm not doing this. Like, I am not doing
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
And Pete and I go way back and we were friends before I even worked with him. And so like we have a really good relationship. And he was like, listen, I am really trying to put a leader in this position that can run things and me not have to be such an integral part. And I really need her to be able to do things the way that she wants to do them. And if you refuse to do this, then it's keeping her from being able to do the job to the best of her ability. And I really need her to be able to do her job the way she wants to do it. And he's like, can you please just do this for me? So I don't know if I ever told you that, but I was like, fine, fine, I'll do it. And I was,
Oh yeah, it was begrudgingly. Is definitely how
yeah,
I put it.
yeah, I was not happy about it, but I did
Yeah.
it. And so I don't know. I know what I
Mhm.
can think of at the turning point of when I softened, but I
Mhm.
have a feeling it might not be the same time as yours. But why don't you tell me? Because maybe I have a bad memory and then I'll confirm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is just a really good example of the two because you are such an A player vendor. Like you're an A player service provider, A player. Just, I mean, you go beyond just Facebook ads. Your brain is one of the smartest marketing brains I've ever known. So like you have so much to bring to the table and you've been doing this for a really long time and you've been doing it for some very huge, huge brands. And here I am, and I'm like, you don't know me, I don't know you. So here we are.
Yeah.
And I'm also an Enneagram 8.
Yes.
So,
2 8s
you have
are like,
two, yeah,
who's
you
gonna
have
win?
2 8s, two female, strong females
Yeah.
that pride themselves in how they run their
Yep.
ships. How about that?
Yep. For sure.
So I pride myself in how I run my show, and you pride yourself on how you run your show. And my favorite managers coming up were ones that let me do whatever the hell I wanted to do. So it makes total sense to me that you're like, yeah, I really like working with clients that let me do what I need to
I
do.
do.
But here's what I think from my perspective. And I think this is just for anybody who's listening and you personally manage, or have somebody external to the company that you work with or manage, you have an outside vendor or service provider. This is just really interesting to even see our dynamics talking about this, right? Because you have 2 A players who at first kind of bumped heads. And it would be devastating if we hadn't figured it out, because man, all the potential that we got to do together once we figured each other out and gave each other some of that mutual respect. So for me, where I think that you softened towards me, but I'm just like overall very charming, was every time that you needed something, I was there and fast. So like that was something I remember, that was a complaint that you had before, like, hey, I don't really ever ask for help, but when I need certain assets or certain ad creatives, get outdated or they're just getting old, like speed would be great, because especially in that Rise Up World channel, it was nuts and
It
we
was
were going
crazy.
fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like every time you said I need X, I gave you XYZ plus.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do it very quickly, and I was very good in like following through and communicating and then coming back around. Anything else that you need, and I was trying to make sure that you knew that I was helping you win, because if you win, I win anyway. So like, why wouldn't I help a vendor? Why wouldn't I help somebody in your position?
Yeah. I agree that that was starting to turn the tide for me when I saw that, what's the right word here? Like reliable, right? Like getting things done. Like you were on top of it. And so yes, there was an appreciation for that you handled things in a way that I had not seen someone be so efficient, productive,
Mhm.
effective, all the things. I really didn't get to fully experience you like that though until we worked together again later, which we can talk about. But I think in that capacity at that time, yes, there was a softening towards you, but I was still pissed. And I was still pissed. And I've never told anybody this except for maybe probably one of my closest friends. I was like 2 weeks away from quitting. Like I was going to send a Vox to Pete and say, if I have to keep working with her, I am quitting. Like, and I'll
So
tell you
funny.
this, what's funny was after you left and you were not working there anymore, I don't know if you'll remember this, but you sent me a Vox and you were like, hey, I created this sales page, for this new thing I'm doing now that I'm out on my own. And I have, so much respect and appreciation for your knowledge and stuff. And you sent me like the kindest like Vox in the whole wide world. And I'm gonna tell you right now, because I can remember where I was standing. I was standing in my bathroom. First of all, I saw a Vox from you and I'm like, why is she messaging me? Like, what does she want? Right. So then I listened to it and I'm like, oh no, she didn't. This woman like didn't trust anything that I did, and she's gonna ask my opinion on blah blah blah. And like, so I didn't even respond right away. I want to say I waited a couple days because like I'm not even responding. I am not responding. And then like just something in me was like, chill out. Like she's telling you that she respects like your expertise and
Mhm.
your opinion.
Mhm.
Like chill out. And so then I did respond, and that kind of, that can take us down a whole nother trail. But to me, that's actually when I started to soften
Oh
towards you,
wow.
was when I got that message.
Oh my God. First of all, I've never heard this story. So me and the listeners of the podcast are hearing this for the very first time. Well, on that front.
I was just, I
um,
didn't believe that you believed in me. I didn't
yeah.
believe that you thought I was capable. And I think that's why it was so hard. And this is such a good conversation to have for, like you said, teams, right? People who are listening right
Yeah.
now who have 2 A players on their team or who are used to being the leaders. Like, I didn't believe that you trusted me. And so it made me, it hardened me towards you and not even giving you a chance because I felt like I wasn't trusted. And trust is so important to me
Yeah.
that because I didn't feel trusted, And you obviously, like, you're not just going to walk in and instantly trust everybody. So, I don't, like, you were justified in your, what your way of too. But like, from my point of view, I felt like I wasn't trusted. And so
Mm.
therefore it caused me to harden.
This is fascinating to me, and it is so good that people are literally hearing this exchange. Because 1, I've never heard this story, 2, and I didn't know you were gonna quit over that even more fantastic considering where we are today, and we are, like, literally just so people understand, I Vox Adrian weekly is not even like sufficient. We Vox very, very frequently. We text, and it's not even just about work. It's about like all of life's categories. Like now you're using my parenting coach, for example. Like we literally are there for each other when I'm having like a crisis of whatever, something personal. I come to her when I'm like stuck between 2 hard choices. I'm like, do I have an obligation? Do I not have an obligation? I go to Adrienne. Like she is just this like compass for me, and I would like to think vice versa, but we are
Absolutely.
so close now considering how we started.
Hmm.
And I think it's really interesting because we are also, not to be stereotypical or sexist by saying this, but like, yeah, we're females and we're strong females, which I don't know if this is where we want to go with the podcast. Maybe we do, but it's like I am a really, really strong female. I'm often the youngest person in a room, or I'm the only female in a room. And I don't try to be, it's not like my personality is to compensate for those variables. I am who I am. I've always been like this from the womb.
Hmm.
Like, this is just my nature. This is who I am. And I've had to learn to use that or harness that in a way to work with others, like another strong female who is self-aware and has a lot of confidence in her abilities, right? Okay, so you softened because of my Vox? This now I need to
Well, so
know.
that
It's the
started,
Vox?
okay? So there's even more
Okay.
you don't know. So that
I don't
started
know.
it, but I was still like a little bit like perturbed, right? Like I still felt like I cannot believe that she is like asking my opinion. She doesn't even trust me. Like she doesn't even think I know what I'm
Mhm.
doing. Like, so
Mhm.
that was the beginning. And then you
Mhm.
had reached out to me because you were working with Boss Babe and you were looking for someone to manage ads. And first of all, I was shocked when you reached out to me for that. I was like, she doesn't even trust me. She's going to ask me to like work on another account. So I
Mhm.
don't know if you remember this, but at first I was like, I'm kind of full. I only have one spot left. And I was hoping that you
Yeah.
would just be like, okay, no problem. I understand. But you were like, okay, well, let's get on a call and talk about that one spot. And I was like,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and that conversation, I didn't expect that I was going to get hired, and then when I did, I can tell you that like the relationship started prior to that. It changed prior to that, but our working together at Boss Babe now brought my level of respect and trust and admiration for you to like the highest level of how we worked together at Boss Babe. So like the softening and everything was changing before that,
Mhm.
but really for me personally, where my entire view, where I got to see you for who you are and your power and your strength and all of the amazingness about you, I got to experience that at Boss Babe, and that's when I was just like completely transformed in my belief in you.
Oh. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny because I saw, well, and mind you, just to be fair, I didn't really work for Pete very long. Let's be very clear. Like I came in and I left for my reasons, but I wasn't there for very long. And then I did. I went kind of had my own little visionary moment, which I need to do a whole podcast on like my visionary story versus like my rainmaking story.
Hmm.
But when I got to Boss Babe as chief of staff, I basically had to make a marketing team from scratch. Like it was in disarray is putting it nicely. And so I knew the urgency that I felt. I'm like, I cannot make no mistake. Like there's no space for mistakes or trial. Like I can only afford A players to come in right now. Like it was one of those situations, right? And so and talking to Natalie and Danielle and just kind of like going through the strengths and weaknesses of that particular arm of Boss Babe, our ads was something that they really, really wanted to focus on because that brand has grown so well, so based off organic growth they hadn't even really scratched the surface with cold advertising. And I had seen you through cold advertising scale like something I've never seen before when I was at Pete for the very short period of time that I was working for Pete. So I'm like, oh, I know the person. I know exactly the person who can scale like nobody else I've ever seen before. And she's a strong female. So it's funny that you say that you felt like I didn't trust you because I brought you in because I trusted that you would handle it and I wouldn't have to like micromanage you in any way,
Right.
shape, and form. And it wasn't some like junior ads manager that I couldn't afford that at that size of company or
Yep.
brand. That's so funny to me. We'll be back with this interview right after the commercial break. Did you know that I have a free Rainmaker hiring kit? Skip the formal recruiting process and learn how to source Rainmaker applicants that are already connected to you. I'll show you how to turn a walking testimonial into a rockstar team member for free. Head to veronicarami.com or click the link in my show notes to get your hands on the free Rainmaker hiring kit. Now let's get back to the show.
And what was interesting was our interaction at Boss Babe. I didn't feel micromanaged at all.
Nope.
I had so much respect for the way that you were running your team and the way you were handling things. And I was like, holy crap, this is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this before. And I didn't feel micromanaged at all. And the funny thing was when it came to those freaking reports, I remember you came to me and you were like, hey, I just need
Uh-huh.
one slide. If
Uh-huh.
you could just do one slide for me. And I was laughing when you did that because I was like, she knows.
I
She
knew.
already thought about like, how am I going to handle this so I can get her to do what I want her to do?
Yep.
And that also made me have an even more respect for you because you recognized that like as leaders, sometimes we have to adjust the way we handle the people on our team to like meet
Mm-hmm.
them where they're at, right? Like we can't, it's just like parenting. You can't parent every kid the same. You can't manage every
Yes.
person on your team the same. And I felt like you understood me enough that you adjusted the way you approached me and what you needed from me. And even though I wasn't like thrilled to do it, I no longer had the stance of like, I'm not doing this. Like, you were like, I just need this one slide. I just need this. If you could just do this for me. And there was like this deadline that it, needed to be done by. You just knew how to handle me in a way to get what you wanted. And I wasn't like dragging, I wasn't like kicking and, screaming the whole time.
Well, that's the point, right? That's the whole that is literally people managing is like you're put in a position to help others be their best, but you also have to get them to do the things that you need from them
Mm-hmm.
in a way that doesn't piss them off.
Yeah.
And I knew this was my second chance at bat. And I knew how the first one went because I was like, hey, and when we're talking about reports, like there's, spreadsheet style, and then my style is like I like the visual part of it. So it's like usually Google Slides or some kind of PowerPoint, ish format. And so I wanted it to be pretty and I wanted to have like a thick, because when you're appeasing to visionaries, they are more visual and they tend to be more emotionally driven. So I wanted to like show the story more than tell the story on
Yeah.
like a versus like a row or a column on a spreadsheet. But I knew with Adrienne.
Yeah,
Go
to
ahead.
add into that, sorry to interrupt you, is I hate slides. I hate them with a passion. I hate PowerPoint. And so the way I do my reports is I do a video and I just turn on Loom and I do a video and I
Mhm.
explain. And so because like to me that's the easiest way to get the information across. And so not only were you asking me to do a report in a different way than I do, you were also asking me to operate with a tool that I hate, right? And so you did
Yes,
make it
ma'am.
easy for me of being like, it's just one slide, right?
Mhm,
Versus like when
mhm.
I had the report you wanted from me at right after the Rise Up World Challenge, is you were like, I want to know every ad that worked, every ad that didn't work. I want to know every audience. I want to know this. I want to know that. I want to do blah 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 blah. And it was gonna be like this 30 freaking page presentation. And I was like, I'll give you what you want, but I'm not putting it on slides. And you're like, I need it on slides. So
Mhm.
that's, I think, like you said, you have a certain style that you like to present the information. You're the leader, and your job is how do I get the people that are on my team to give me what I want in the way that I want it, and you did that very well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's you honoring me honoring you. And this is, by the way, this is the two of us in a very much like I'm inside the company, I'm on W-2,
Mm-hmm.
and you are outside the company, and you are in a position where you don't have to work with us if you don't want to. Like
Right.
I was very aware of that. Like you are such an A player and you are at a position in your career in all that you've achieved that you get to be selective and you
Mm-hmm.
get to be picky. I love that power dynamic because I don't know, I love working with equals.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that I don't love being a people manager over those that are young and they're coming up and like I love pouring into somebody's flower pot,
Mm-hmm.
but it is such a gift to work with somebody that you would consider a peer and
Yeah.
like where you can like, and I know that I can, it's like you and I are ping pong partners. I can ping to you and you can ping back to me, and we can like have that kind of collaboration. And between the two of us, an even better idea is formed.
Mhm.
If you as a leader can create a container and environment for that to happen, like you have to invite them as opposed to having your pride or ego be damaged goods because somebody goes, well, I don't want to do it your way.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think a big, huge part of it is mutual respect.
Sure.
We just have such a respect for each other and each other's gifts and abilities that neither one of us thinks we're smarter or better than the other
Right.
person. And we have both had opportunities where we very kindly, lovingly, gently corrected each other,
Yes.
if you want to use that word. But the only reason that we're able to do that is because of a very high level of respect for each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And trust. Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good message for team members to hear us say that, because I think there's a fear sometimes when you're coming up in your career to like disagree with your boss or to provide an alternative, and so you just kind of take it, right? You're like, okay, you just be, not that you want to become a yes man, but it happens where you're like,
Yeah.
there's that fear. And by the way, there are some leaders that will reinforce that behavior because every time that you do offer an alternative, they're like, no, mine's better, and I don't like
Mhm.
that either.
Yeah.
But I think this is good for anybody. If you're a team member listening to this podcast, like, I cannot tell you what it is to be both a CEO but also a manager within an organization, to have my people that I'm responsible for come to me with alternatives. I love being challenged, obviously in a constructive, respectful way, but I actually really, really enjoy not having to be the single source of problem solving and
Mhm.
ideation on behalf of the company or the department.
Yeah.
And I strive so hard, and I try to be so conscious of making an environment where ideas can be heard and validating ideas, but more importantly than just the words, actions mean more.
Mhm.
So if somebody's coming to you with an idea or you're coming with a solution, like commit with action behind it too, and the action on behalf of the leader to like execute somebody else's idea that didn't come from you, like that really, really matters. And I know I want to talk about your leadership style, because we've talked a lot about like the dynamic of you being a client provider, like you're providing an amazing service on behalf of a client. But how would you say that influences your leadership within your team and your organization? Because I know that you and I both operate with very strong morals and values at
Yeah.
all times.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that it I don't know if difficult's the right word, but it was hard over the years to build a team of people who I think it is very important for them to have the same values. Like we have a saying that with like we do all things with excellence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing all things with excellence. We are always people of integrity. We
Mm-hmm.
always do right by the client, even if it hurts us as a company. And not that doesn't mean that we just like let clients treat us like crap. That's not what I mean by that.
Oh, I
But
know.
do but doing the right thing, right? And so it's been very important to me to have people on my team that have those same values
Mhm.
and once you have them though, my leadership style is just like I've sat here and talked about with you. Trust and respect are very important to me, and I need to be, if I can trust the people on my team that they have the company's best interests in mind, then it creates a respect between the two of us that I have for them and that they have for me. And then, and because I don't want to micromanage, I want the
Yeah.
people on my team to shine. I want, like, one of the things I love about owning a business more than serving my clients is actually serving my team
Yeah, same.
and pouring into them and letting them shine and letting them operate at their best. And but it's a two-way street, right? So it's in the hiring that you make sure that you're hiring people that align with your values and what's important, and then cultivating that and building that trust and respect to where now the people on my team, like, I don't micromanage anybody. I don't know what time
Mhm.
they're at their desks or not at their desks. I don't know what time they finish for the day or don't finish for the day. All I know is that they do their job with excellence and they get everything done on time, and all of us are together. And I think this is why you and I worked so well together at Boss Babe. All of us, it's not about us individually as like, ooh, I thought of that idea or I did this.
Mhm.
We're all working towards a goal that's like what's best for the company, and
Yep.
we're racing towards that as best as we can. And when everybody on the team is doing that, then it's not about ego or who gets credit for it or who did what. It's like we're all working towards this goal and we're going to do everything we can to make it happen. And so that's what I try to create on my within my company and on my team is that what is the goal here that we're all working towards? And then how do we conduct ourselves in a way that gets us there?
Yeah. And I'll say this because I don't know if I've ever even told you this story. Take that. But I'll validate you on this. I went to your event in Nashville and it was amazing, by the way. And I remember talking to your staff by the bar when everybody came in. You kind of gave drinks on us or on you, right, to
Mm-hmm.
or for us. But I remember speaking to some of your team members, and one of them, and I don't want to share the story. It's hers to share, so I won't say her name. But like, she cried and was just like, Adrienne's changed my life.
Yeah.
She's changed my life. And she's the same staff member or team member who, like, if I get an email from her at like 10 o'clock at night, I'm like, I'll email back. I'm like, why are you emailing at 10 o'clock at night? Go to bed.
Yeah.
So, like, I can validate what you're saying that they feel loved, they feel trusted, they know that you have their back. Quite frankly, what I also love about your leadership style that I think your team members also see, I see it every day, is like you're willing to do the hard things
Mm.
sometimes. And this is important because sometimes we get to a certain level of success and then we're like, okay, I've outgrown mopping the floors, so to
Mm.
speak, or I've outgrown certain things. But I still watch you, and I still do this too. I still watch you get your hands dirty. I still watch you work at, I think, exemplify some of the strongest work ethic I've ever seen to this day. And I think you modeling that for your team is why they show up so hard for you too, because they know that you're both in the trenches together when you need to be, and you're both celebrating when you need to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big part of what I would call Adrienne Richardson's leadership style too.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do. I think that a good leader is part of the team, not just standing above the team telling them
Yes.
what to do. Like they are a part of the team. And so there isn't anything that I am like, "Psh, I'm not doing that, or, get somebody else to do it, or, like there's nothing that I look at in that way. And in fact, there are times, many times, where we've had a client treat my team poorly, and I will, you know, step in and contact that client, whether it's, I never do it through an email, whether it's a Voxer, it's a phone call, it's a whatever, because one of the things that I will not tolerate is the mistreatment of my staff. And so I think that also creates a level of respect that they have for me, is that they know that
Mhm.
I don't care what their position is in the company, that it's never okay for people to not treat them, kindly and respectfully. And what I also try to teach my team to help them not take those things personally is that, when people are scared, it shows up as anger. And so I
Mm.
always tell my team, when you get like a nasty email or message from somebody, the first thing I want you to do is assume that they are scared. And that's why they're showing up that way. And if you knew they were scared, how would you talk to them versus the way you would talk to them if you just thought they were being a jerk?
Mhm.
So there's like a mutual respect where we want to be respectful to the client, but there also is a line of like, hey, I'm not going to tolerate you being mean to my team.
Do you know, has Dr. Hope told you? So Dr. Hope is our now mutual parenting coach. But one of the things that she has coached me on, and I don't know if she's said the same thing to you yet, but with our when your children are being complete jerks to you, like with those days when they're just being not nice to the mom, she one of the things that she says is, what could you she calls it what your most generous interpretation. What's
Mm,
the most generous interpretation that you can give on behalf of your children? So, like, let's say they had a really bad day at
yeah.
school or something's really bothering them or whatever, or like when your spouse has a really hard day at work
Hmm.
and they just kind of lash out. Like, instead of just like responding to the behavior, focusing on the feelings, and then on top of that, giving the most generous interpretation to why that behavior is not kind or is
Yeah.
rubbing you the wrong way. And I've certainly had to deploy that in all of my own client services, because I ran a marketing agency before I sold it. I was an account manager for years and years. I obviously have private clients. You and I both have private clients now. And yeah, you're right. People sometimes are not their best selves in a state of unbalanced feeling and emotions, whether they be scared or angry or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. She has said that to me. And something that someone else said to me, a good friend of mine, she used to always tell me, I had a chance to work with her very closely for many years. And she would say, always assume, like she would tell the whole team, like in interacting with each other, always assume that I have your absolute best interests in mind. So
Mm,
rather than reacting to someone and being like, oh, I can't believe they did that to me, or why did they say that to me, or they did this to me, or blah, blah, blah. If you looked at it and said, how would I look at this if I assumed this person had my best interests in mind? Would I interpret what they said differently? Would I perceive it differently? Would it land differently? And would I respond differently? Right.
mhm,
And so don't assume that because I did this thing, I was trying to like be a jerk or hurt you or whatever. Assume that I must have been operating from the point of having your best interest in mind. And maybe it didn't work out. But when you assume that, you respond to them differently, right? You can respond. And one of the things that Dr. Hope does say is like responding out of curiosity, right? And so like instead of responding out of like anger, if you respond out of curiosity, like, I know this person always has my
mhm.
best interest in mind. So I'm wondering what could have happened of why they said this or did this or whatever. It allows a different kind of conversation to happen where you can move towards a solution instead of being like butting heads and being angry and fighting. So always assuming that they have your best interests in mind. You know, when people on my team do something and I might be like, my initial response, right, might be like, well, why the heck did they freaking do that? Like, or why didn't they do that or whatever? And then I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, no, I know this person well enough to know that they always operate in like what's best for the company and operate with excellence. So I need to get curious and understand what
Yeah,
happened. And like 99.9% of time, the way that I was taking what they did was wrong. Like I was interpreting it wrong.
yeah. Well, gosh, what's going through my head right now is when you're put in a position of leadership, you can't discredit that people have previous either workplace trauma or relationship trauma of some kind. And so that's going to come up. And I keep thinking about that, like, when I'm people managing and there are behaviors where I'm like, this is just not, I can just tell, right? Like something's off, and then
Yeah.
giving them the most generous interpretation that I can give, but also realizing that that could be sourced from something that has nothing to do with me or the present organization that they work in. And same thing for you, right? As an agency provider, or especially with Facebook, I mean, ads, anything right now. But like, how many clients have come to you who have already, in their words, been burned by someone like you? So, right? So you're already guilty before
Everybody.
proven. So I guess, how do you how do you flip the script?
Well, before I answer that about the clients, I can tell you an example of what you were just talking about with
Yeah.
people working at other places. My rainmaker at her former, place of work was very different than where, how things are at here. And there was a time when we had a conversation where I remember saying like, why
Mm,
didn't you tell me that? And she said, well, at the last place that I worked, like the boss did not want to like know the bad stuff. Like we just dealt with it. We never told them the bad stuff. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like that's not how we do things here, right? Like, and even there was a time when she was really like struggling and in like personal stuff or whatever, and I didn't know about it for a while, and then I was like, no, like that's not how we do things here. Like we are open and honest, and like, so you're very right that
yeah.
sometimes people bring stuff from the way they were treated or handled in other work environments. And so it's not even that that person is like that way, like why are they acting like this? It's this learned behavior from before that, again, if you get curious, you can find out the root of it and then help to change it instead of just assuming that that person is like, oh, they were hiding stuff from me, right? Like, no, they thought they were like protecting me. So I wanted to circle back to that. But in terms of clients, pretty much the conversation is the exact same with every single person that I talk to.
Yep.
They're like, I hired an ad agency, this happened, that happened, blah, 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 right? And, I never, ever, I'm never, no matter what, even if I know the agency that they came from, even if I know they have a bad reputation, even what, I will never, ever badmouth
Mm,
any of my competitors. I am not going to say to a prospect or anyone else, like, oh, well, yeah, they're pretty bad. They have a pretty bad reputation. Like, I I do not believe I believe that it makes us look worse when we
agreed.
badmouth our competition. And so I will never badmouth my competition instead of me saying, well, they dropped the ball or they did this or they probably didn't know what they were doing. I never say that. When they tell me about their horror stories, all I do is focus on our results and what we can do. And I kind of ignore by responding that way, I ignore and don't even address the bad experience they had. I just say, here's what we do, here's what we're known for, here's the kind of results we get, blah, 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 blah. And I just focus on what I can do for them. And I never badmouth who they worked with.
I'm 100% with you. I see a lot of experts bashing other experts and like this villainization. I'm like, what in the world? It's only making the industry worse.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
look bad when you do that. You're not making them look bad. You're
Okay.
making
Do you know
yourself
what I
look
love
bad.
about this podcast? And this is not scripted. Like, it just kind of became what it turned into, what it was meant to turn into. But I think what I'm getting out of it is, God, like the blessings, the gains, the benefit of flipping the script. I think about that for our relationship. Can you imagine if we didn't flip our own script? If we had just stayed where we started, we'd be missing out on so much, right? I just like, oh,
No,
it gives me like chills. But like
so much.
the flipping of the script of
So
our
much.
relationship, the as leaders helping our team members flip the script on stuff that maybe had hurt them in the past and being a safer place for them to be their truest selves, helping clients not flip their scripts and their narrative. I mean, it's just the power of changing the narrative is everything.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah. And you can change that narrative when you aren't so focused on yourself, right? Like I think some leaders, it's like they put themselves on this pedestal and I'm separate from you, right? And they look down on people. And so the only way to flip the script is to get
Mm-hmm.
curious, to be humble,
Mm-hmm.
to be in integrity and build trust.
Preach. All right, Adrienne. Where can people, I love you, I'm obsessed with you, I recommend you to everybody. Where can people benefit from your zone of genius in the way that I have?
Well, because I do Facebook ads, I have a large following on Facebook, but I have recently been dabbling in Instagram. You've been a huge inspiration in that. So they can also find me on Instagram. And I actually post I call them marketing minutes. Every single day, I post a marketing minute that's 60 seconds or less. It's a lot about Facebook ads, but a lot about other marketing as well. And so if they want to get a taste of that, they can follow me on Instagram or Facebook.
Sweet. Okay, and we'll link to everything in the show notes for everybody. But Adrienne, like I said, I pride myself in my own marketing and I pride myself in I think I know a bit. But
Yep.
man, Adrienne's brain is one of the best brains. That's not even the most eloquent way of putting it. Like, you are just so smart, and it goes way beyond just Facebook ads. The way that you see the whole like the journey from prospect to customer, everything. Like, I come to you to ping pong most of the time, and I really appreciate that. So if anybody's sleeping on Adrienne, let that be a lesson to you. Go and follow her on Instagram, Facebook, go to her website. She is a gem of gems.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Rainmaker Podcast. We believe you can't get real results or have real relationships that last without being real first. If you resonated with today's episode, leave us a review so we can keep serving up the truth and tips that help you become the empowered leader that I know that you are. And always head over to veronicarami.com to check out all the free resources I have for you and the show notes from this episode. Until next time, my friends.